Right. It's not wrong unless they act on it.
What is that like as a person when you know you are an academic and you are a professor, when you see that from these, especially from somewhere like Harvard, like it just.
Yeah.
Jonathan Haidt from NYU Business School, who has been on the forefront of warning about identity politics and everything else. Some of you may remember when I was waking up to the Why I Left the Left, when I was just starting that thing. This is around 2014. And the Rubin Report was just taking off. He was like the fourth guest on the show because everyone said, you've got to talk to this guy. He's warning about it.
Yes.
And the result of that, in terms of people terrified about people attacking them, is what you get when you got those people from Penn, from Harvard. We're talking about this rampant anti-Semitism on campus, where people were actively calling for the death of Jews, saying that this does not constitute harassment unless it's actionable, which is
stunning.
Insane.
Right. It's not wrong unless they act on it.
What is that like as a person when you know you are an academic and you are a professor, when you see that from these, especially from somewhere like Harvard, like it just.
So yes, I'm a professor at NYU. I was at UVA for 16 years. I love being a professor. I love universities. I'm also Jewish, and I can understand the argument that those presidents were making. The argument was a very narrow technical argument about whether students should be allowed to say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And so I understand why it would have been reasonable for them to say, well, we're not going to punish students for saying that. That is political speech that's protected under the First Amendment. So I understand the point that they were making, but they were such screaming hypocrites in making that point because, and this is what the Coddling the American Mind was all about. How did it happen that, you know, if a professor or administrator writes a single word that a student objects to and calls racist, suddenly this person now out of a job? Like, really? Like, you're going to fire someone or let someone be tormented and fired because they said something that someone interpreted in a certain way? And that led us to be super hyper crazy sensitive about every word we say, because you never know when it'll explode and cause a scandal. And so for the presidents to say, oh yeah, you know, anything anyone ever said between 2015 and yesterday would be punished if anyone was bothered by it. But from the river to the sea, oh yeah, sure, that's constitutionally protected.
It wasn't just from the river to the sea. It was the literal expression, death to Jews.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
And that's what they were specifically defending, saying unless it's actionable, which is insane. Unless you commit actual genocide? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. No, I'm sorry, Joe, you're right. The question, the deeper question is about political speech, but you're right that as Stefanik, I believe, was asking them, it was about calls for genocide.
Yes.
And so yes, calls for genocide, it seems to me, you know, again, I'm not a First Amendment lawyer, maybe on the First Amendment legally, like you can't be arrested for it, but for God's sakes, on a university campus where you're trying to make everyone feel included, you can't even comment, not just about the calls for genocide, but about the actual events on October 7th. So that, I think, is what really brought higher ed to a nadir, a low point in public esteem, like literally a low point in public esteem.
Well, I think it was a wake-up call for a lot of people that are kind of on the fence about how big the issue is.
Yeah.
Because these are the same people that call for you being kicked out of the university if you dead name someone.
Yeah, that's right.
These are the same people that if you use the wrong pronouns.
Yeah.
By the way, you can go one step further than Rogan's actually going, because Jonathan Haidt is using the First Amendment, that definition of free speech, right? Except this, when we've played these videos for you a million times, when those congressional hearings were happening and they were asking the presidents of Penn and Harvard and MIT about these hate speech codes, it wasn't about the First Amendment. It was about the hate speech codes at the university. Each university, much like each corporate atmosphere, they have a guidebook on what do we allow here? What do we allow here? And unbelievably, Harvard was basically going to allow, you can kill all the Jews as long as you don't actually do it.